And from Hollywood this morning, a death to report. Actor Patrick Swayze has lost his battle with pancreatic cancer. The star of Dirty Dancing and Ghost was diagnosed 2 years ago and faced his illness openly and straight on.
Patrick Swayze's final words have basically turned into internet folklore. One video claims he whispered a heartbreaking goodbye. Another says he faced death with some fearless Hollywood one-liner. Millions of people believed those quotes were real, even after Lisa Niemi, the woman sitting beside him in those final hours, publicly pushed back against them. And here's the strange part. The real story is actually far more emotional than the version spreading online. So how did the truth get completely buried in the first place? The diagnosis that should have killed him in 5 months. New Year's Eve, 2007. Patrick Swayze lifts a glass of champagne and suddenly feels this violent burning sensation tear through his stomach, like acid hitting an open wound. According to his own later interview with Fox News, the pain was so sharp, it immediately felt wrong. Not hangover wrong, not indigestion wrong. Something deeper. Then came the weight loss. 20 pounds disappeared almost instantly. And when he looked in the mirror and saw jaundice turning his eyes yellow, he knew this wasn't something he could ignore anymore. Within weeks, doctors confirmed the nightmare. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It had already spread to his liver. And here's the thing, people forget when they repeat those fake inspirational quotes online. Patrick Swayze did not react like some fearless movie character delivering perfect final lines for a screenplay. According to Lisa Niemi, during a 2024 interview with the Spanish newspaper El País, his first response after hearing the diagnosis was brutally human. He looked at her and said, "I'm a dead man." That sentence matters because it actually happened. Not the polished internet version, not the dramatic TikTok rewrite, the real one. Pancreatic cancer is one of the most aggressive cancers on Earth, and according to ABC News medical contributor Dr. Lucas Wong, the median survival rate for someone with stage 4 pancreatic cancer that had already metastasized to the liver was roughly 5 months. Think about that for a second. 5 months. Doctors weren't talking about recovery. They were talking about survival windows. But Patrick Swayze somehow lived another 20. And honestly, that's where this story gets more emotional than the fake quotes ever could. By January 2009, nearly a year after the diagnosis, Swayze sat down with Barbara Walters for an ABC News interview that people almost never reference anymore. Probably because it destroys the myth that he faced death with calm cinematic wisdom. He didn't. He was honest. Completely honest. "I'm going through hell," he admitted. Then Barbara Walters asked the question everybody watching wanted answered. Was he scared? "Yeah, I'm scared," Swayze said. "Yeah, I'm angry. Yeah, I'm wondering why me." That doesn't sound like a Hollywood legend trying to inspire people. It sounds like a man fighting to stay alive while his body was betraying him day by day. And weirdly, that truth feels much more powerful than the fake internet version where he supposedly smiles at death without fear. Because fear is real. Anger is real. Especially when you're only 55 years old and doctors are quietly preparing your obituary. Another uncomfortable layer to this story sits in the background too. According to reporting from OK Magazine, Swayze smoked up to 60 cigarettes a day for more than 4 decades. 60. Even after the diagnosis, reports claimed he struggled to stop completely. Dr. David Hoffman, speaking about smoking addiction in coverage surrounding Swayze's illness, explained how nicotine dependency can become so psychologically wired into survival instincts that people continue even when they know it's killing them. And Patrick himself admitted smoking likely played a role. That honesty is important because he never tried to turn himself into a saint during the cancer battle. He didn't pretend he had all the answers. He didn't fake positivity every second. Sometimes he was hopeful. Sometimes he was terrified. Sometimes he was angry enough to ask why this was happening to him in the first place. That's a real human being, not the simplified version people repost online beside piano music and black and white photos. And get this, despite the diagnosis, despite chemotherapy, despite pain that Lisa Niemi later described as relentless, Swayze kept working. During treatment, he continued filming episodes of The Beast, pushing through exhaustion while the world watched him physically shrink month by month. Viewers could literally see the illness changing his face in real time, yet he kept showing up. That kind of determination probably helped create the myth later. People wanted the story to feel inspirational and clean, so eventually the internet sanded off the fear, removed the anger, erased the ugly parts, and replaced them with fake, perfect quotes that sounded more poetic. But the truth was messier, and honestly, far sadder. Because behind all the headlines and rumors was a man who knew exactly how serious his condition was, almost from the beginning. According to ABC News, the odds were already stacked brutally against him the moment doctors confirmed the cancer had spread beyond the pancreas. Most patients never get much time after that stage. So, if the average survival time was only 5 months, how did Patrick Swayze manage to keep fighting for nearly 2 years? The 20-month miracle nobody talks about. January 2008 to September 14, 2009. 20 months. That number doesn't sound shocking until you realize doctors initially expected Patrick Swayze to survive around 5. According to ABC News medical contributor Dr. Lucas Wong, most stage 4 pancreatic cancer patients with liver metastasis live only a few months after diagnosis. Moffitt Cancer Center later confirmed the average survival rate for advanced pancreatic cancer was usually less than a year. Yet somehow Swayze kept going nearly 4 times longer than the median estimate. And weirdly, almost nobody online talks about that part. Most videos skip straight from diagnosis to funeral, like the entire fight in the middle didn't even exist. But the fight is the story. Honestly, it's the most incredible part of the entire timeline. Because once the diagnosis landed, Swayze didn't disappear quietly into privacy. He attacked the disease like someone trying to force extra time out of the universe itself. Chemotherapy started almost immediately, alongside an experimental medication treatment that doctors hoped might slow the spread. According to multiple reports following his death, he stayed on aggressive treatment for more than a year, even while the cancer kept advancing. And during all this, he kept working. That still feels almost impossible when you stop and think about it. The man was receiving brutal cancer treatments while filming the television series The Beast. Crew members later described how determined he was to keep showing up, even as the illness visibly weakened him. Some days, he reportedly needed help standing between takes. Other days, he pushed through pain that most people probably couldn't imagine. But here's where his own words become important again. During that Barbara Walters interview for ABC News, the same interview where he admitted being scared and angry, Swayze also said something else people rarely quote. "I've never been one to run from a challenge." That line feels different when you hear it in context. It wasn't fake bravery. It wasn't some polished movie speech. You could actually see exhaustion in his face during the interview. The determination existed alongside the fear, not instead of it. And that's what made the fight real. Lisa Niemi later described those months in heartbreaking detail during a 2024 interview with El País. She said living through the illness felt like a complete nightmare 24/7. Not occasionally difficult, not emotionally exhausting sometimes. A nightmare around the clock. Every day became scans, treatments, medications, uncertainty, and tiny moments of hope, followed by devastating setbacks. Then came one of the most emotional moments she ever shared publicly. According to Niemi, the two were walking together on their ranch one day during the cancer battle. It was peaceful outside, one of those deceptively beautiful afternoons where everything looks normal even when life is collapsing underneath it. She said Patrick suddenly looked at her with tears in his eyes and told her, "I want to live." Not, "I accept death," not, "I'm ready to go." "I want to live." That sentence completely destroys the fake internet narrative people created later. The real Patrick Swayze wasn't calmly waiting for the end while delivering poetic one-liners. He was fighting for more time, desperately, emotionally, humanly. And honestly, maybe that truth makes people uncomfortable, because fear is harder to package than inspiration. A man begging for more life feels raw, messy, real. It forces you to imagine yourself in the same position. But a fake quote about not fearing death? That's cleaner, easier to repost beside soft music and movie clips. The strange part is that Swayze's actual legacy became genuinely meaningful anyway, even without the fictional dialogue people attached to him later. According to the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, his openness about the disease dramatically increased public awareness at a time when pancreatic cancer rarely received mainstream attention. More people started learning symptoms. More people started discussing early detection. Funding conversations grew louder after his diagnosis became public. And medicine actually moved forward after his death. According to reporting from Today, the 5-year pancreatic cancer survival rate has nearly doubled since the period surrounding Swayze's illness, rising from about 5% to roughly 11% because of newer treatment approaches and medication developments. That still sounds terrifyingly low, and it is. But doctors say progress that once seemed impossible is slowly happening, which makes Swayze's timeline feel even more extraordinary in hindsight. Back in 2008, surviving 20 months with stage 4 pancreatic cancer that had already spread to the liver was incredibly rare. Statistically, he had already outlived the expectations stacked against him. But fighting longer than expected doesn't automatically mean winning. As the disease kept spreading and his body kept weakening, something else started happening online too. Rumors, fake stories, made-up final quotes that spread faster than the documented truth. So how did Patrick Swayze's real final moments get buried beneath internet fiction in the first place? The lie that went viral. It starts with a quote that sounds almost too perfect to be real. "Promise me you'll keep dancing." That line has been attached to Patrick Swayze's final moments on Facebook posts, YouTube narrations, TikTok edits, and even quote cards that get shared millions of times. And it spreads so easily because it feels right, like something a movie character would say in their final breath. But here's the problem. There's no verified source for it anywhere in the medical records, memoirs, or interviews closest to the actual moment. What actually exists is something much quieter. According to Lisa Niemi, in her 2012 memoir Worth Fighting For, the only confirmed final words she heard from Patrick Swayze were simply, "I love you," spoken during a fragile window on Friday night before he slipped into a coma. Then the silence stretched. No dramatic speeches, no poetic farewell, just a gradual fading until his death on Monday, September 14th, 2009, as later verified in reporting by Grunge and Yahoo News summaries of the memoir. And that's where things start to get strange, because the internet didn't want to be quiet. Another version of the story took off entirely. The National Enquirer once circulated a claim that Swayze's final words were, "I'm not afraid to die, I'm going home." But according to the Standard in the UK, that version was later challenged directly by Lisa Niemi herself, especially in documentary commentary, where she made it clear those lines were not what she witnessed. Still, by the time corrections appear in stories like this, the fake version has already traveled halfway around the world. That's the pattern nobody likes to admit. Emotional sentences move faster than verified ones. And it makes sense when you think about it for a second. Keep Dancing feels cinematic. It feels like closure. It feels like something you'd want to believe about a man from Dirty Dancing. But real life doesn't always land in perfect dialogue. Sometimes it just ends in two simple words between people who have spent decades together. I love you. Lisa Niemi has spent years trying to gently pull the narrative back toward that truth. In interviews referenced by Far Out magazine, she repeatedly confirmed that her memoir remains the only primary source for his final moments, and everything else floating online is secondary at best, fictional at worst. But correcting the internet is like trying to slow down water once it's already flooding. By 2024, she was still talking about him publicly, not as a myth, but as a person she still feels connected to. In an El País interview, she admitted something deeply human, saying he still appears in her dreams and that she hasn't emotionally lost him in the way people assume grief works. There's no performance in that, just continuity. Memory stretching past death in a way only people who've loved someone that deeply would understand. And get this, even her personal life became part of the internet's judgment machine. After remarrying in 2014, Niemi faced backlash from fans who felt she had somehow betrayed Swayze's memory. But in a 2022 Fox News interview and again in a 2024 TooFab feature, she pushed back on that idea with something incredibly grounded. She said, "Just because you lose someone doesn't mean love stops." Not a slogan, not a quote meant to go viral, just lived experience. Still, the myth version of Swayze's death keeps winning online because it's cleaner. A man facing death bravely, delivering poetic final instructions, leaving behind a cinematic legacy in his last breath. That story travels. It fits neatly into edits, captions, and tribute videos. Meanwhile, the real version, the one documented in Niemi's memoir and confirmed across multiple reporting outlets like Yahoo News and Grunge, is quieter, more human, and a lot harder to package. Friday night, I love you, then decline, then coma, then Monday, no script, no performance, just the end of a 34-year relationship reduced to a whisper between two people in a room. And that contrast is where the uncomfortable truth sits. We didn't just misquote Patrick Swayze. We reshaped his entire death into something more digestible, something more heroic, something that feels less like loss and more like closure. But real loss rarely behaves like that. Every legend has a hero. But in this story, who do you think gets erased when we replace truth with something more inspiring? And once you start pulling at that thread, you realize the bigger question isn't just about one actor or one quote. It's about how easily entire human experiences get rewritten once they enter the internet. So what actually happened in those final 48 hours that produced the real final words? The real final words and what happened after. Friday night wasn't dramatic in the way people imagine endings. Lisa Niemi brings Patrick Swayze home from the hospital, and everything narrows into something almost unbearably quiet. No speeches, no cinematic last stand, just two people who had lived a lifetime together, sitting in a moment that was clearly running out of time. According to Niemi's memoir, Worth Fighting For, later confirmed by outlets like Yahoo News and Grunge, the final exchange was simple. My last words to Patrick? I love you. And those were his last words to me. Nothing crafted, nothing poetic, just love spoken plainly before everything shifted. After that, Lisa wrote that things moved fast, almost like the body had stopped negotiating. She described those hours in detail, which feels almost intrusive to read. Holding his hand, listening to music in silence, sleeping with her arm around him, her head on his shoulder, everything wordless. That word keeps repeating because there really wasn't anything left to say. Then came the coma. After that final I love you, Patrick slipped into unconsciousness and never recovered. No sudden turn, no final awareness, just a gradual fading that carried into Monday morning, September 14th, 2009. ABC News confirmed he died peacefully at his Los Angeles ranch with family present, including Lisa and his brother Donnie Swayze. Lisa later described his breathing in those final hours as tiny, almost childlike, as if the fight had finally dissolved into something softer. And she knew, not dramatically but quietly, that it was time. At the ranch, everything became small and deeply personal. A white rose was placed on his chest, an amulet set above his bed. Even his horse, Ro, was brought close for a final goodbye. These weren't symbolic for the public. They were grounding rituals inside something overwhelming. After his passing, his body was cremated and his ashes scattered at his New Mexico ranch, the place he always called home. And then, something unexpected happened. Lisa didn't disappear. In 2012, she released Worth Fighting For, a New York Times best-selling memoir documenting their 34 years together and the cancer battle, including raw moments that most public figures would never share. CBS News noted even the inclusion of a stark photo of Swayze during his final illness, bald and visibly weakened, refusing to soften reality. Years later, she remarried in 2014 to jeweler Albert DePrisco and addressed the backlash in interviews with Fox News and 2Fab. Her response was direct. Just because you lose someone doesn't mean love stops. Not a slogan, just her lived truth. And even now, in later interviews like one cited by El País in 2024, she still speaks of Patrick in present emotional terms, saying she still feels connected to him, still has a relationship with him in a different form, something ongoing rather than finished. That's the part people don't expect. The story didn't end with death. It just changed shape. And maybe that's why the real final words matter more than any viral quote ever created. Patrick Swayze didn't leave behind a cinematic final line, just a simple I love you, confirmed in Lisa Niemi's memoir and later reports like Grunge and ABC News. What's wild is he still outlived the odds by nearly 20 months, fighting way beyond the 5-month median doctors expected. And get this, most viral quotes never happened at all. They just sounded better than reality ever could. So, which part hit you most? The fake quote myth or the real fight behind it?